everybody, I'm Melisa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials, and today we are talking about overcoming the fear of first grade or teaching first grade. We have a lot of moms that are getting ready to start first grade in the fall, and they're freaking out just a little bit. Maybe it's their first time around, or maybe it's just their first time teaching first grade. There's so much that generally comes with first grade. Moms are worried about, I'm teaching them how to read, and all this painting and drawing stuff is all brand new to me. And so we have a lot of moms that are really stressed out. So I wanted to sort of take some time to break a little bit of it down for you and hopefully help you be a little more at ease. So first, if you have a child that's coming to first grade that is already reading, you don't have that huge worry over your head. And I really don't think it needs to be a worry anyway, and I'll sort of talk about that in a minute. But if you have a child that's already coming to first grade and they're already reading, your questions might be, I think they're going to be bored. I think they're going to, I don't know how I'm going to keep them engaged. And my response to that is they will not be bored. They will not be bored. If you are doing all of the pieces of Waldorf, there is no way your child is going to be bored. Because you've got painting that they're learning, modeling that they're learning, new drawing that they're learning. There's a whole bunch of new things there. If you've not, you're probably introducing the flute or a recorder, and you're introducing knitting and handwork for the first time. So there's a lot of things that go along with first grade that have nothing to do with reading. They actually help assist those that are not reading yet, and it really works to get both sides of the brain moving together, especially the knitting, the crossing the midline. All of those things really assist in the reading process, and that's part of why they're done in first grade, but it is part of the curriculum as a whole. So if you have a child that's already reading, please don't fear that they're going to be bored. You want to stick to the story content. And so if you're using something like our curriculum, let's see here, our grade 1 Waldorf Essentials curriculum, if you're using something like our curriculum, then we have it planned out for each of the days. And that doesn't mean you have to do any planning, and I'll talk about that in a minute too. But what I would do is, so for instance, if you are using our curriculum, I would just skip especially if you have a child that just learned to read in the last 6 months, I would go through them anyway. Go through them anyway. They will be review. Just make sure you have them down and tight. But if you have a child that's been reading since they were 4, and that's 3 years ago or almost 3 years ago, then you've got a child that probably does not want to sit for those letter introductions. So just skip that part. Just do the stories. In the where I've got it laid out for the day, just do the story that's recommended and skip the letter introduction part. They still need the stories. The point of grade 1 is the story content. So you want to make sure they get the story content. They still need those fairy tales. So that would be if your child is already reading and coming to first grade. If you are, and I probably should say too, I should have said this at the beginning, sorry. First grade is for the child that is 7 or almost 7. So if you are using a January to let me start over. If you're using a September to May school year, then you want to make sure that your child turns 7 probably before March, or March being the gray area. April, I tend to push to the next year. May to the next year. Definitely June to the next year. Okay, I want to answer some questions here. I found that the artistic was a challenge for my okay. And the stories were nourishing. Yeah. So the artistic portions of the grades are going to be hard. They're meant to build the will. So when moms say to me, do I really need to learn this? Is this, they might come to Waldorf and they're brand spanking new. And I say, yeah, that your job is to learn the curriculum, understand it, and then get going on some of the art portions. Even if you're starting with just one of them, even if you're just starting with modeling. All you can afford right now is some modeling beeswax or some clay. Just start with modeling. And people are going to say, clay? You said clay in the first grade? You know what? Steiner didn't have beeswax. Steiner said you can mold with the stuff that you get in the gutter. So just some dirt and sand. There's so many things that you can use for modeling. And while yes, the Stockmar beeswax is beautiful, and that's what we use on a regular basis, we still use clay sometimes too. And we spend a lot of time doing tactile things. especially in those early years. So don't be afraid to step away from the dogma a little bit and use what even Steiner would have used. So, but again, if you just need to focus on one thing, say your budget is super tight, you bought the curriculum on sale, you're kind of stressing out about things, and you're trying to figure it all out, just buy one thing. You could buy one thing of beeswax and utilize it. I like to buy there's beautiful colors of beeswax. You can also just buy like the plain beeswaxy color, and that works until you have the funds to buy more. And beeswax runs about $2.50, $3 a stick. So depending on where you get it from, I really highly recommend meadowsweetnaturals.com for your supplies. They're really good. And then, okay, so one mom asked, how are the arts introduced as blocks one at a time? So for a lot of years, I just rotated through and I just did a painting, a drawing, and a modeling for my older 3 kids. I introduced them all at the same time within the main lesson, and we just utilized that. When Sam came along, he was an older first grader, but he's also very phlegmatic, and so he seemed a little more pokey and slower than my others, and so we started with just one at a time. So we did a full month of painting, and then a full month of drawing, then a full month of modeling, and then I rotated through and did painting, drawing, modeling on a weekly basis. So after he had already gotten it into a system, he knew what we were doing, he understood everything, and that was super helpful. I found a huge difference in him compared to some of my others, and how they struggled a little bit more with painting. The main lesson. So you are doing a story, and you are painting, drawing, or modeling from that story, and you have already done it in advance. So I'm going to say this again. You have already done it in advance. So you're doing it for the second, maybe third time when you sit down with your child. And the reason why I say third time is because, the reason why I tell you need to do it in advance is because you need to make sure that those colors are going to do what you want them to do on the paper. You need to transfer what's going on up here to the paper. So, like this is let's see if I can lean back. This is a golden goose painting that we did for first grade for the letter G. And I know it's backwards, so imagine that it's not. So that was very simple, 2 colors, early in the first grade. So this was Sam's. You can see that his centering is still not there because he's just started form drawing. So this would have been when he was in first grade. That's why I'm sharing some of his paintings. That he had just been starting form drawing. We had just been doing that on a regular basis. So their center gets a little bit better as they go on. So I'm showing you these so that you have some expectation. Now these are really bright. I like to do my paints really. I like them bright. And so, but they don't always have to be. I definitely do a lot of dilution too. This would be typical early first grade. Very muted. They're not using. They're still learning how to use the paints, still learning how to get the deeper color, still learning how to use not so much water. They're still learning those things. But those are the things that come from doing a full block. And when I say a full block, you're probably painting twice a week for a month. And that way they're getting it. By the end of that first month, you would expect that they know when they have too much water on their paper, or they know how to put the paper on the paint board and smooth it down and wipe the excess water away. They would know how to do those things at the end of, end of the first month. So that's one of the benefits that comes from doing it in a block, because it's a concentrated time on painting. Now in a school situation, they would have their main lesson time and the teacher would probably just do a drawing, and then they would go and do painting a couple of times a week. At home, we have the opportunity to paint every day if we want. So you should take that opportunity. You should take the opportunity to really feel fully into this curriculum. So let's see here. Do you have specific drawings that are supposed to be for the letters, or do we do our own? So there are some. If you're using our curriculum, we've got some of them on their site. I've got a good selection of drawings and paintings on the site if you go to resources. And this is for anybody, even if you're not using our curriculum and you just want some ideas. You can go to resources, support for the grades, grade 1, and there's videos, and for grade 1, and there's also paintings and drawings and examples there. So, so you're not alone in this. It's and when it comes to, so you said specific ones, not specific. It really should come from here if you can. If you need inspiration, utilize those. Some moms use Pinterest for inspiration. Do not knock yourself out. The thing that I want you to learn the most is that you are the one getting up early in the morning and painting by yourself. You are the one going, oh, this looks like it could be a great fish drawing, or this looks like it could be a great goose drawing, or you know the stories, and you are doing those paintings so that you are practicing. Because once you are practiced, then you will feel so much more confident, and that only comes from doing. So you have to do the paintings beforehand. So one of the things that I'm doing right now, so Sam is in grade 5 now, and so I'm planning grade 5. I've got all of his blocks done, and I'm getting them more detailed. So my next step is going to be, what paintings and drawings do I need to have ready so that they're already done, so that before we start school, I have a month or 2 at least worth of paintings, drawings, and I've done some modeling on those lessons so that they are easy for us to do. They're easy for me to knock out. My planning is then all done for me. I don't have to stress about it every morning. So mom says with painting, is it okay idea to... Sorry, I'm reading. Okay, so you're showing them the prop, and then you're painting with them again. So that's why I said when you get ready to paint, you're going to paint 2 or 3 times before you're, before you're all done painting that same painting. And the reason being is they learn from you. So you've spent the time. You've realized that, oh, in order for that goose to look like it's supposed to, you've got to take a lot of the paint off. You've got to, make sure that you blend that yellow in there with that red really well. So you already know those things. Those are the things that you're imparting to them. That's the painting lesson you're imparting, and you're doing a lot of that without a ton of words. So if you're a chitty chatty mom, which I totally am because it's a problem for me because I'm partly sanguine and I talk a lot. I can remember my mother saying to me as a child, Melissa, I hope you get a child that talks as much as you. So guess what? I have 5 of them. They talk a lot. Anyway, so you don't want to give a ton of instruction. And we have some painting videos. So please watch those painting videos, especially if you're a Thinking, Feeling, Willing member. We have a lot of painting videos for you to watch. So you can watch them, and that should help. But you're doing by example. There's a lot watching you, and they're learning by example. So I would say we're going to paint the entire page red. So you're going to do that, and then you're having some quiet. And of course, you've got little ones too that are, Mom, what are you doing? Mom, you've got that in there. I'm not assuming that you are doing this in a vacuum because it doesn't happen. We're moms, right? So you want to show them, and I always let the little ones paint with me if they want, the ones that are younger. But my instruction always is, you've already had your lesson, because I've already done a story with the kindergartner or the younger child, and they've had their time with me. Now it's Sam's turn. And so that's my instruction to them. You can paint with us, but my focus is your brother. What if a child is not interested in not following? Oh, well, so this is what I say. You can paint whatever you want after you paint this. Part of grade 1 is learning to follow directions. And that's something that a lot of homeschool moms go, oh, I'm just going to let them do whatever. Part of grade 1 is learning to follow directions. We are teaching them to tame their will. And part of that is to come with us and do the things that we teach them. They cannot paint unless you teach them how. And so those are the words that I would say, even for the bossiest choleric little person that thinks they know it all. So one thing to remember, if you have a more choleric child, and I'm going to say too, your temperaments are not setting at this age yet. They're going to really set more 9, 12, and on up. But if you feel like you've got a fairly choleric child and you are melancholy mom, or you are phlegmatic mom, you better put on your choleric hat, because those cholerics will only take direction from somebody they trust. So you got to have it down. You have got to be confident in what you're doing. If that means you have painted this painting 10 times before you feel confident, then that's what it means. But if you've got a child that is going to be up your butt about making sure that it's right, then you need to make sure that it's right. And that is part of your inner work. That is part of your space. That is part of you feeling confident as a teacher. And that is not for me scaring you. I just want you to know that those are the kids that are going to keep you on your toes. Now for me, because I am a choleric, the ones that kept me on my toes were my middle son, child number 2, that was incredibly melancholy, and every day it was like pulling teeth. And I've done videos on him too. He's a great kid though. He's an adult now, and we made it. But it was hard. It was hard for sure. Our children are definitely our lessons for sure. So I hopefully that helps you with the painting aspect of it. The same would go for drawing. So if you're doing block grant drawing, now I know that's new, and if you've never done it before, it looks kind of scary. So I'm going to find this is not necessarily a typical grade 1. I could not find my notebook this morning that it was in. But you are doing things like teaching. This is a landscape would be an easy grade 1. So my suggestion is that you drop over to teachwonderment.com and get access to Siggy's videos. She's got them streaming. They're amazing. If you're a lifetime member, have had access to that for ages. So I would hop over there. She's really good. It's not rocket science. Once you get the feel of it, you'll be like, why was I so stressed out about this? It does take practice. You do need to take your time. I love her method because it uses only 3 colors. I know there are other people that are teaching block crayon that use all the colors. I am a firm believer in using her method of 3 colors because it further builds the will in first grade. And you need all the will building you can get for the first grade. First grade, second grade, up to 3rd grade. Then their will should be launched a bit, and things will be a little bit easier. But especially in those early years, you really want anything that can build their will. So in the first grade, the will builders are form drawing, block crayon drawing, painting, modeling, knitting. All of those things are major will builders. And for some of you that have children where maybe you've not had a stellar parenting relationship and you've been at each other and you've not maybe had held the space as you should, this will be a challenge for you. But it will be building your will as well. And so I want to encourage you to really work on your inner work and to just get in there and do it and to trust yourself. You can do this. And it is a beautiful curriculum. Like I said, I'm pretty partial to ours, but if you're working with Waldorf, a true Waldorf curriculum in the first grade, all of them are going to be the same. Fairly the same. They're all going to be introducing the same things for the most part. Each of us has our own flavor for sure. But I'm going to show you some other things here. I want to make sure that you understand that you really do need to plan. So even if you're using a curriculum like ours, which is very much open and go, I highly recommend our Planning for Peace journal. Highly recommend it. Why? Because it's a whole lot more than a planner. It takes you through some goals for yourself, some steps for yourself, helping you get ready, helping you build confidence, all of those things that you're going to need, not just for first grade, but beyond. So some of you, excuse me, that are using this journal have asked me, so in the block plan part, how does that look? If I'm using, say, your curriculum, where it's already laid out by the day, how do I then utilize the block planning pages in the Planning for Peace curriculum? So because grade 1 is a little bit different, your focus is fairy tales to learn the letters, so that then we're reading. And I will say that even though in the school, the goal of first grade is not to read at the end of the first grade. I mean, it's not that it's not the goal, but it's not like that's their goal. At home, it is our goal. And that doesn't mean that we're pushing kids that aren't ready, but it means that we are offering them opportunity and space to really take a hold of these letters. And especially if you've got them properly placed, if they're not too young, they should be ready to go. That doesn't mean they're going to be super strong readers in the beginning. You're going to have to build that. That is a daily practice every day, even on Sunday, even on the weekends, even when Dad's there. Every day is a daily practice. Once they're getting those letters in and you're reviewing them on a regular basis. So we introduce letters. I always review on Friday. Monday morning, I introduce or review what we did last week. And then I get going on the new week stuff. So you're constantly doing a review, so you're not forgetting anything. And then by the time you have introduced all of those consonants, the time you introduce that very first vowel, if you've done a good job reviewing, the very first vowel day, short vowels is what you start with. They should be able to read. And it's going to take time, and you're going to have to work with them, and you're going to do the whole sounding out thing, and you're going to need to make sure you had plenty of sleep that night. Because it might not be fun for either of you. So you want to do that in short segments. After they start to really understand the flow and how to sound things out, and maybe they're reading those. There's some great Waldorf readers by Shelley Dividow. Maybe they're reading something very simple like that. You need to work 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. You're pushing that a bit. Then to 20 minutes a day. By the end of first grade, I like to see 20 minutes a day of them sitting and reading with you, reading to you. And if they get tired and they need a break, then you take a break and then you come back to it. But it really needs to be daily work in order for it to stick. And that means over the summer between first grade and second grade, you need to, my kids love doing the reading programs at the library and things like that. But what's crazy is their prizes are always kind of crappy. So I come up with my own prizes. I'll tell them, when you go ready to go turn in your thing for whatever thing you're going to get at the library, I'm going to give you this instead. They're like, oh, thanks, Mom. Because they really like the things that I usually put out instead. And so people ask me, what do you do for your reading stuff? Oh, I might do a trip to the ice cream place, trip to Jamba Juice, trip to, like treat kind of things. Because those are, Jamba Juice is still a treat. It's not really healthy. I might do a date alone with Mom, a day alone with Dad. Just simple little, I usually do little coupons and things like that, so that there are things that they're excited about. Sometimes, if it's a big giant reading goal over the summer, I might throw in a toy that they've been wanting, because right now we're not doing allowance. I did it when my big kids were little. We're not doing it now. And so Sam's forever saying, Mom, how do I earn some money? So this is one of those. I go, well, let's set a goal. And when we achieve that goal, then we can purchase X, Y, and Z, which is usually some Lego or something like that. Anyway, so back to this. You are working on the block plan pages in the Planning for Peace journal. You're going to have your blocks kind of scattered all about in first grade. And this only applies to first grade. So where's this child's name? You want to put your child's name. Let's scooch over here so you can see it. I know this is backwards, but hopefully you've got your journal in front of you and you can go follow along. And then under time frame, I put parts of September, October, November, January, February, March. Why just parts of? Well, because you've got some festivals in there, you've got some times that you take breaks, etc. So that's what I would put there. Block theme, letter introduction and reading. Topics and concepts to cover. You want to introduce each letter in an artful manner with paintings, drawings, and modelings. As each new letter is introduced, you want to review previous letters. So this is just sort of your topics to cover so that you're getting it. You know. It's not enough to just read it in the curriculum. When it goes from here then through your hand on paper, it cements it even more. So it's very helpful for you. It's a good process for you. And then I put field trips because there are some awesome places around that have fun things. So one of the things that I would put on here for field trips that we did for Sam in first grade before we moved here was Children's Fairyland in Oakland, California. It's all fairy tales. It's this fun place where you can go and check out all of the different fairy tales that they have set up there. And another place would be the weekly puppet show here in Balboa Park. So because they're often fairy tales oriented. So I like to spend a lot of time having fun with fairy tales. It's not just all about the rigors of learning to read. It's about the bigger picture. So and then block notes. So these would be the notes that I would say to yourself. Remember to get plenty of rest during these blocks. You want to make sure your patience level is full. So whatever you need to do to get that rest, yeah, definitely. And then outside supplies you might need: painting supplies, block crayon supplies, modeling, beeswax, and main lesson books. How many main lesson books do you need for first grade? I don't know. It depends on your child. I get asked that question a lot, and it really depends on your child and how you're laying out your lessons. I start with generally like 6, but that's if you're using traditional main lesson books that maybe you get from Pamela at Meadow Sweet Naturals, or Paper, Scissors, Stone, or some of those other people that sell main lesson books, or Mercurius. I really like, and I did not bring one down here to show you, sorry. I really like the Fabriano Ecocora books they have them at Blix.com. They are about 12 by 8. And they're bound on the side, so they look like they're portrait when you are looking at them, but just turn it so that it's landscape, and it's a good size. It's definitely a good size for all the grades. I'm using them right now for all of our grades, and I like them because they have more pages in them. They do not have onion skin, which I don't like onion skin. I know why they use onion skin, but I don't like it. So they have a lot of pages in them, so you can cover a lot of ground, and the paper is really nice, good quality paper. So that's the Fabriano's by Ecocora, and yeah, so they come in lined, they come in grid, and they come blank, by the blank. I like them because they come in a lot of colors. I got a lot of kids with big opinions about colors. So anyway, I think that we might be coming to the end of this. Does anybody have, because we have a lot of people watching, does anybody have any questions that I have not covered with regards to first grade? I'm going to give you a minute to type them out if you do. I hope that this is informative and it's helping you. You know, when it comes to confidence, some of the best things you can do are read the curriculum from cover to cover, and really get strong in knowing what you're teaching. Lauren says, what would we be doing in the main lesson books? That's where all your lesson content's going. That's where your drawings are going and your summaries are going the next day. So the general, we use a 2-day rhythm in Waldorf, and that even works if you're only doing 3 school days, so I can cover that really quickly. 2-day rhythm is: first day, you are introducing a story and working with it in some artistic manner. So either you're doing a painting or a drawing. And if you're doing a drawing, it'll go right in your main lesson book. Paintings generally are bigger, so I like to just keep paintings loose and set them aside. Plus, I end up using a lot of our paintings as props to show you guys, so it would not do me any good if they were all bound. We bound them when the big kids were younger, but I don't bind them anymore. I just sort of keep them together. So that first day, you've got a drawing from the story there in the main lesson book that you've done. Remember, you've done it in advance, so then when you're sitting down, it's a lesson. You're doing the lessons together. And then, let's see, is there any harm in going back? No, there is definitely not harm in going back. You should go back. If you have a child, Stacy, that is having trouble with reading, you should go back in those. I wouldn't do the grade 1 stories, though. I would definitely just find a way to blend them into the grade 2 stories. It's not a big deal. And then Lauren says, do we write the summaries together? Yes. So, and I try to keep the first week of first grade super short. Like the first story is about Mount Semele, and this is actually from our video that we have a video that goes along with grade 1. Again, resources, support for the grades, grade 1. That's where they are on our site, waldorfessentials.com. So that very first sentence, it's like magic mountains move, and that's it. It's very short because they're not at a place yet where they're writing a ton. By the end of first grade, it's a more complete sentence, and it's a more descriptive sentence. The point of summary writing, and there's actually a video on this, so go back and watch the video on it. The point of summary writing, you are beginning right now in first grade, something that you will be continuing all the way through the grades. So you got to work on it really well now. This summary writing happens on the second day. You come together the second day, you review the story. It's had a chance to sleep. You want it to have that chance to sleep. You review the story, and some moms ask me, what if we're only doing school Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Totally okay. That means they had 2 nights for it to sleep. It's not a big deal. So you review the story, and then together you write a summary. Now, when I say together, again, in those first few lesson blocks of first grade, they're going to be a little bit green, and they're not going to know, and they're going to give you this summary that's like the whole story, and then you have to help them understand that a summary you break down and you make it smaller, and then as they get better with their writing, then their summaries are getting longer, but still first grade, by the end of first grade, 2 sentences tops, because they're just not there yet. Second grade, those stories are shorter, so 2 to 3 sentences. And third grade, 3 to 4 sentences. By the end of third grade, I like to let them get their feet wet on doing some writing on their own. They're not doing so much with me. Some kids are great at it. Some kids freak out about it. So you just sort of have to feel them out as you get older. But right now, first grade, you are right there with them. You're writing it together. Maybe you're putting it on a chalkboard. I don't have a chalkboard these days. I used to have a big, beautiful chalkboard. You've seen it in a lot of our videos. I gave it to Kelly when we moved. Now Kelly doesn't need it anymore either. You sort of go through these stages as a homeschool mom, and now I'm in the minimalist stage. So I use the big main lesson book, or the big sketch pad, to do most of my stuff. So we go ahead, and I would write out in nice big letters for them to see what the sentence is that we're going to write. And then they are going to write it out too. Another question I get is, in the school, people will say to me, in the school they introduce all the capitals and then the lowercase. I'm going to say this. 100 years ago, when this started, it would have been very appropriate to do that. Children weren't seeing a lot of signs outside. They weren't driving around in cars like we are. They weren't spending as much time seeing letters everywhere. I introduce upper and lower together. I say, this is the big daddy, this is the little kid, or however you want to say that when it comes to the letters. That way, they're seeing them both on the same day, and they're learning to interchange them both. I find that incredibly important because you don't find books that are written in capital letters. So if you want them to read, you're going to have to cross that bridge. So I find it immensely helpful for that. And I'm going to go through here and read some when you introduce story. Do you just have your first grader listen? So, yeah. Let's see. Hold on. Squirmy boys. Sorry, I'm reading here. Okay. So again, I teach several children. So if you are a Thinking, Feeling, Willing member, there's a mom lesson on teaching several children. Make sure that you go through it. When it comes to, because there were many years where I had little ones after the first grader. So I always do the younger children first. And I do that so that they have a piece of me and that they can go off and play. And then they are usually more than happy to let the first grader have their lesson. So I really do that. Like I said, I do that first lesson. The first grader is maybe making their bed or doing something, another chore or something, while I'm working with that younger child, so that they can then go play. Then my focus is that first grader. I do lay out elaborate scenes sometimes for those fairy tales, and the younger children are very interested in them. You could say a couple of things. For one, if you can't get them to do something else and it's too disruptive, I get it. Just let them sit there. It's fine. It's not going to hit them the way it's going to hit your first grader because they're not developmentally ready for it yet. And so, but your focus is that first grader. And so I would say, you can sit here with us, but you can't be crazy because I need to focus on your brother. If you get crazy, you're welcome to go sit in the playroom and play, because that tells me that you want to play instead of listening. So if you're going to be here, you have to listen and use your ears to do that. And you can't poke at your brother, and you can't, I don't have time for that. Sorry, there's more comments here. Anyways, then we go through and we do the story, and then we move right to the drawing portion, and right to that portion, that artistic portion. Maybe you're painting, maybe you're modeling instead of that day. My suggestion to you is you go through all of those stories, and you make a little note in your curriculum book. This one will be easy for painting, drawing, modeling, painting, drawing, so that you know which ones you want to do. That's what I do with all of my lessons. And it changes from year to year. Sometimes I really wanted to do this painting with this one child. Well, this other child, man, they really needed some modeling, so we did modeling instead. So even though I tend to keep notes on everything, I definitely change it up sometimes. So only you know your child and where their skills are and what you want to strengthen. So let's see. Mom says, would you take a few minutes to discuss the 4 processes? So the very first math block in the first grade is the 4 processes. It's introduced as a story, and they pick it up very easily because they understand all 4 of them on the first day. And then you work within them, and our curriculum has all of those math lessons laid out, and people will say to me, to use another curriculum? Your curriculum seems really, really light on math. Are you sure that that's enough? Yes, it's enough. If you want to use more, use more. Don't go crazy. Don't buy workbooks. Do not do all of that. Do not break yourself. It is written complete, and absolutely is not a problem. They're going to love it, and they're going to work through each piece, and it's not hard. That first math lesson is a real fun one because you're doing all of the gnomes at once, the math gnomes at once. Hopefully you've either made some math gnomes or you've got a good drawing of them. There's a pattern in our book to make math gnomes. So, I think that that really you're going to have a lot of fun, but you got to let yourself have fun. You have to let yourself calm down. So, okay, I'm going to read some more here. When you write your summary, uppercase or lowercase? I write both because, like I said, we're introducing both at the same time. So I know that that's different, that the other Waldorf curriculum writers will fight with me, but you know what? We're doing it. We're doing what I think Steiner would do if he were here. You're doing practice in your circle. It might be tossing the beanbag, counting by 2s, counting by 5s. First grade it's very simple. You're doing good if you can get them past the number 12, because a lot of kids get tripped up at 13 because the way the English alphabet goes, it doesn't sound right. It's a huge, they'll often go 12, 14, 15 because 13 doesn't sync right in there. So if you can get them to count without any mistakes in first grade, you're doing great. So definitely you're counting to 100 on their own in first grade, and they're doing counting by 2s and counting by 5s and counting by 10s. And if they are excelling at that, then you can add in there the 3s. And you can add in there the 4s. You're doing whole to parts math. So they're not just doing 3 times 4 is 12. They're doing 12 is. That's the Waldorf way to do math. 12 is, and then you can say 12 is 6 times 2, 12 is 6 plus 6, 12 is 3 times 4, 12 is 10 plus 2. There's many ways to make 12. So the idea is you're teaching them to think much more flexibly than if they're going from the parts to the whole. So that's what whole to parts learning means. So let's see. Another mom says, working with the penny whistle should lessons practice every day, only on days with lessons. So when it comes to things like, we should definitely cover this, like your penny whistle lessons or flute lessons. Those lessons, I do the music lesson. We're doing the flute and the recorder. So I do the music lesson before their main lesson, and I do knitting before main lesson. Why? There is something about doing this crossover action with those knitting needles that helps with reading a lot. It's something I did not discover until Sam, and I'm kicking myself. And I've taught to, I'm actually really good friends with a lot of school handwork teachers, and they're like, what? We could have handwork first in the day and every day. Wow. It would change because they all agreed. They all thought that the idea of them working better because they had been doing handwork was spot on. And so at home, we have those opportunities. So use them. Definitely use them. So the way my flow would be for first grade, and actually this is for any grade, is we come together and do our morning gathering, and that's not a full circle. It's just a morning gathering where in our family, we do a prayer, and sometimes we do a hymn, and then we'll have breakfast and do our scripture study then. If that doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. And then we go on a walk after breakfast is cleaned up. So I am sure that so this kind of goes back into how you're taking care of your home. In order for that to run smoothly, I have to have done the dishes the night before. Samuel has to have unloaded the dishwasher before breakfast. So there's things that have to happen in order for this to run smoothly. So I'm making breakfast, and Monday is our big breakfast day. And so because that dishwasher is empty, I'm putting things in it as I'm making them dirty. And we eat our breakfast, and we clear the table. It takes 2 minutes to put the dishes in the dishwasher while kids are putting shoes on. And then we're out the door on a walk. The walk really helps get those morning jitters out. And we do not walk by anything fun. No school, don't walk past a school or a playground. This is a walk to get the morning jitters out. And for us, it's about a mile, a little over a mile to where we're going back. And then when we come back, we get right to school. So what that means is if you have a first grader, you might save a chore for them or have something for them to do, especially, so this would be if you have younger children. If your first grader is your youngest, then hold on, I'll talk to you in a minute. So you've got a first grader and then one's under that you want to make sure that you meet first. You've got your first grader going to do something else. Excuse me. Then have a circle with your little ones. If you want to include your first grader in the circle, you can totally do that. I usually do their own kind of circle when I've got younger ones and older ones, just because there's stuff that I want to do just with them. That the little ones, they're not going to be catching the beanbags. I mean, throwing the beanbags, and it's going to be ugly. And then it'll devolve. So save yourself some heartache and really plan it out. So do a circle with the younger ones, do their story, and give them lots of good cuddles, and talk to them about this being their lesson. Oh, did you like your lesson today? Did you have fun? Oh, you want to draw? Go ahead, you can draw now. I'm going to go work with your brother while you're doing your drawing. So then that means you've got everything ready for the next child. Everything is ready for the next child. So you can then transition easily into jumping in and doing their story. Because then you've got this younger child is hopefully busy. Especially if that younger child is like 4, 5, 6, they're going to hopefully be busy. Now, if you've got infants, 1, 2, and 3-year-olds, then they're going to be with you. And that's okay. You want to leave that space open. But as they start to get a little bit older, you want to broaden that space a little bit so that they give you the space for the lessons. And the reason being, yes, you're a family, and yes, you homeschool, but I firmly believe that every child needs their own lesson from you. And there will be definitely times when you're doing some combining, for sure. But every child needs their own lesson from you. That's why you're doing this. This is an amazing journey, and it does not have to be hard. If you use the methods that we talk about, we're the only curriculum writers that have half a basketball team as a family. So utilize the skills that I have learned over the years. Don't make the mistakes that I've made. Listen to some of the things that I say when it comes to working with several children. We have lots of podcasts on that. So if you want more information and you need to go to our free section because maybe you're not a Thinking, Feeling, Willing member yet, you better hurry it up because it's a great program. So I've done with the younger kids, and then I've done my first grade lesson. And then the younger kids are going to want to come back, and that's totally okay because then you've already done that story portion. Often I'll get through the story before I would have had Soraya come back and want some more of me. And then, I'm just greeting her with hugs and cuddles and, oh, do you need a snack? So then I have the snack tray out and offering snacks. That often helps. First grader, if your first grader is your youngest child, then you've got it made. You really don't have a ton that you have to do. You definitely, if you're working with older children, I would send those older children off to do their sustained reading that has to do with the curriculum. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. If your first grader is your youngest or your oldest, I talk about that later in the grades. I always have reading that goes along with the main lesson for them to be reading. So I send them off to do the reading, and I work with the first grader. It's such a beautiful thing. I love what I do. I love homeschooling my children. Yes, it can be stressful. Yes, it can be frustrating, but you have to step yourself out of thinking that it's going to be bad. And really work on that rhythm, getting that rhythm nice and tight. We are done. I have a teenager in the mix, so her school takes longer. We're usually done by 2. if you only have a first grader and say children under it, you're going to be done in 90 minutes tops. So you're going to go on that walk, you're going to come back, you're going to get busy, and you're going to be done probably by, if you're going on that walk by 9:30 or 9, you're going to be done by 11:30. Well in time for lunch. And that's even with interruptions. And that's okay, because then you have the rest of the day to have fun with them, to play with them. I know I'll get these questions. So how long should that music lesson be? And how long should the knitting time be? So the music lesson, I usually keep 15 minutes or so when they're that young. And then you grow it as they get older. And then the handwork lesson, I usually do the length of one sparkle story. So we will put on a sparkle story. They tend to be about 16 minutes, and 16 to 18 minutes, sometimes a little bit shorter. We do one sparkle story while we're knitting, and so that's plenty. And it when they're listening to a story, or so if you don't have sparkle stories, use whatever you have, or tell them a story, which is really, I can walk and chew gum, but telling a story and knitting is not my favorite. So I don't like to tell stories while I'm doing handwork. I would rather listen to an audio while I'm doing handwork, just to sort of free up some of my own faculties. But I had a stroke a few years ago, so probably before then it wasn't so bad. But I'm sitting there knitting right along with them. I do not expect them to knit while I sit there doing nothing, or while I sit there on my phone. Absolutely not. Your phone should be put up and on silent mode so you don't hear it during school. But anyways, I'm sitting there doing handwork with them. I'm knitting with them. I'm right there next to them. So if they need help with their handwork, I'm right there, able to help. And because, like I said, because you're listening to an audio, you don't get the, how many rows do I have to do? I go, we're just going to knit until the audio's done. And then when the audio's done, I'll look at where you're at. And if you're in the middle of a row, we'll finish it up and then we'll be done for today. And that takes a lot of the angst about handwork out. So anyway, I think that's everything. I'm hoping for those that are listening that I've covered everything that you needed. My prayer for you would be that you just decide that you're just going to jump in and do it. If you've not done a stitch of painting, drawing, or modeling, today's the day to start. Today's the first day of the rest of your life. So get in there and get started, and don't be so stressed out. Okay, somebody asked another question. Do you set up the main lesson story before you begin the circle? Well, okay, so I don't always use props with my main lesson story for my first grader. I definitely do them with a kindergartner, and that's always all set up. But I do set up for main lesson, so I have my prop drawing or painting already there, and I have all my stuff out. That's when you're getting up before your children, you're gathering all your stuff for the day, and so that it's out and you're ready to go, so that you're not stressed about it. There's nothing that will destroy the mood of school faster than you not being prepared. So get your stuff together beforehand. And I will say too, and I've had many a days like this when I was not prepared, so we just went to the park. It is okay to do that. You are homeschool, so there are no rules. It is okay for you to go, you know what? I'm not on my game today. I'm going to be a better mom if I let them run and I get a little bit of time in my own brain. So definitely don't feel bad about those. Okay, so Lauren asked, would you talk a little bit more what circles look like in the first grade? For some reason, this is blocked. Okay, so at home, there's some moms that will just totally disagree with me, and that's fine. You can disagree with me. I'm a big girl. It doesn't bother me if you disagree. In the first grade, if you're doing just a first grade circle with just your first grader, then, which is not always the case, and I'll talk about both of those. If you're doing just a first grade circle, then you're probably reviewing some concepts. Like, let's go over the letters that we already learned. Do you remember the sound for M? And maybe we're tossing the beanbag, and I'll go M, and you toss the beanbag to them, and they go and then I'll go D, and then you toss the beanbag to them, and they go D. So this is interaction. That's what that circle looks like. Maybe you're counting. Like I said, skip counting. You're tossing the beanbag back and forth for that. If you have older children that you want to bring into that, then it's okay to do that. If you have younger children that want to be part of that, let them be part of it. One of the things that I learned was when I did that, and it was okay, that my younger children were counting really, really, really well when they were life because they've been counting with their older siblings. That doesn't mean that that's not meaning that they're ready for anything, except for that they've learned how to memorize what order the numbers go in. So, and that's just from repetition. And that's good, but it's not a ticket for you to go, oh, maybe I should start first grade with them. No. Remember, there's a reason why we start at 6, almost 7, because that's really when they're ready for school. And for moms that don't trust me, they go, oh, well, I'm just going to do it anyway. 9 times out of 10, probably 9.5 times out of 10, they're coming to me mid-year going, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this is falling apart. I don't know why I can't get them to sit still. I go, well, how old's your child? Oh, wait a minute. That's right. You had an April birthday and you wanted to start first grade anyway. And so I try not to say I told you so, but I sometimes will say, well, remember we had this talk about whether or not it was time. And that way you really want to have them in this good spot. Honestly, I think my favorite child that I've taught so far, I love all my children, but the favorite has been Sam. He had a June birthday and he started in September. So it was like 7 and 3 months, and it was perfect. It was the huge blessing. In fact, I have a blog post on the blessing of teaching an older first grader. And it's been beautiful as he's walked through. He's getting ready to go into 5th grade. He's ready for 5th grade. He's had all of those experiences that were a little bit lagging with some of my others. And Soraya has an April birthday, and she was a preemie. So even with her adjusted age would be the end of May. She's most likely going to start first grade next, not this coming fall, but the next fall. She just turned 6. We will be evaluating over the Christmas break whether or not I should start her in January, and that is perfectly acceptable too. So if you have an April, May birthday and you're like, I don't think I can talk my husband into waiting another year, perfectly valid. So what I would do is do kindergarten up until Christmas break. And then at Christmas break, you start to do all the evaluating. You look at, but that means you have to actually be doing something. Don't just go, well, they're so bored. Nothing's happening. And I really think they need, you have to be doing something. So you should be doing something, not nothing. If you've got a child that's bored and ready to go and you're trying to, really hold on to the space so that they can get the content when they need it. So, our kindergarten, the 2nd year kindergarten, is fantastic for this because it takes you up to first grade. It takes you right up until the days before first grade, and it starts to bring in those concepts later in the months of in the later months of K2 to sort of get you ready for first grade. So if you've, again, got an April or May birthday, in December, I would do some major evaluating. Maybe book a consult with me, send me pictures of what their knuckles look like. So when they're starting to get ready for first grade, you can see more defined knuckles rather than the dimpling that happens when they're still very young. They can reach their arm up over and touch their ear. Now, probably not all the way over their ear, but you want to make sure that they can at least touch it, and you want to make sure their head's not doing this, or their head's not forward, or their arm's not. You want to make sure that it's straight up and over. So that's another way. It's not just the loss of teeth, it's the emergence of adult teeth. And so there's a lot of people go, oh, they've lost 4 teeth. And I go, do they have any new teeth coming? Well, no. So you want to make sure that they have new teeth coming in. It's all a bigger part. The teeth one I don't use as much because our standards in food have changed over the last 100 years. So what we had, 100 years ago, good food, non-GMO, all of those things that a lot of us are trying to get away from, it's in the ground. It's in it's like almost in the genetics of the food. So you need to be really not using that one as the only indicator. That's why I use several things. I look at their balance. Are they walking up the stairs 2 feet? Or are they just going 1, 2, 3, how are they walking? Are they ready to ride a bike? Are they maybe on roller skates? Are they, how's their coordination? How's their proportions? Look at their proportion. Look at the proportion of a child who's ready for first grade versus a younger child. Their proportions have changed a bit. A younger child, the head is almost the same size as the other three portions, it starts to lengthen a lot more. How's their breathing rate? That's one thing that the flute helps with, is sort of helping them develop their lungs and their breathing. So, it is all encompassing. You can't just look at, okay, I'm going to back up. You can just look at one piece, but you're not going to educate the whole child if you're only looking at that one piece. So look at the whole curriculum. Look at the entire bit. And if you can't incorporate everything on day one, work with what you can incorporate. So if you're stressed out, you're not going to be able to learn how to paint and model and draw between now and the time you start school. Take a deep breath. Pick one thing. I would start with modeling. It's the easiest place to start. I would start there, and then while you're doing that, you're getting good at that, you need to bring in the next thing so that you are staying on top of it. That's part of, sort of this commitment in this education. You don't skip form drawing. Moms all the time that tell me, oh no, I haven't been doing form drawing. Once a week, I do it on the lightest day. I usually do it the first time of the week, so don't skip form drawing. It leads into other things later, and you need it. And it will help their penmanship. It will help their will control. It will help their spatial ability on paper. It will help with so many things. So, definitely don't skip that. Okay, I think I covered everything. I've got a lot of questions. And, with instruments, one more. What do you start with in first grade? My preference in first grade is the pearwood flute, but I know that's not in everybody's budget. It was not in my budget for many, many years. So we did the plastic Yamaha white recorders for a long time, and those are fine. Melissa and Doug makes a wooden recorder too. Very good cheap options, but they're cheap options. They're going to sound way different than the pearwood flute. There's also, excuse me, and we're working on a blog post for instruments, because this is a question that comes up a lot. And so I'm going to have the lovely Kimberly Parsons, who is helping me with the music book. She's going to help me do a blog post on just this, like, what should you choose? There are some good quality instruments that aren't going to break the bank, but you do need one for you and one for your child. You don't just need one. You need to be learning right along with them, because it's not, remember, Waldorf is do as I do, not as I say. So you're going to have to be working in all of those things too. So don't let that freak you out. If you are not anywhere near the music portion of it between now and the time school starts, then you give yourself until Christmas and go, okay, I'm going to start recorder in January. And you give yourself the space to learn it. But don't drop it. If it's something that you can hire out and you just don't feel comfortable, confident, or you just don't think you're going to have the time, definitely hire it out then. But see if you can find a Waldorf mom or a Waldorf music teacher to help you with that, because it will be different than it will be if you just go with some traditional music lessons. Traditional music lessons are going to have them reading notes early, and in Waldorf, they don't read notes until they're in third grade. So they're doing a lot of stuff by ear. They're hearing sounds, which goes along with learning how to read and all of those other pieces. I think we're done. And if you have any other questions, drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week, and hopefully you're not stressed out about first grade now.